Welcome to the Stop Suffering in Silence podcast with your host, Denise Walsh and Rachel Timothy.
Hello, you guys. Welcome to our first ever live educational awareness fundraiser for Stop SIS. Stop SIS stands for Stop Suffering in Silence, and we work primarily with trauma and trafficking survivors, educating communities on how to keep their kids safe, as well as empowering those on the healing journey. My name is Denise Walsh. I'm a clinical psychologist and co-founder of Stop SIS. And then we also have Rachel Timothy. She is a trafficking survivor and is going to share a bit of her story here in just a minute. And so we're going to be hanging out with you and several other guests throughout the next few hours with the goal of raising $1,500 to support our upcoming retreat for survivors this April. So if you are interested in, in donating, let me see if I can do this right. You go to Venmo at StopSis, and then I can, there you go. That's how it goes.
Hey,
so
look at you.
StopSis is the Venmo to donate anything that you give. We are a 501c3, is tax deductible, and goes directly to supporting survivors on their healing journey. All right. Well, we are moving on to the next phase of today's presentation, you guys. I'm kind of excited about this part. Rachel has no idea what to expect. But we are going to do a segment called Rachel Reacts. And I have two videos to show her. One is a story from an OnlyFans model. And I was listening to this story and I thought, I really want to know what Rachel has to say about this. And then the other is a recent story that just came out from a woman in Texas who's being charged with sexual assault of a teenager. But what's fascinating about that story is that it was from over 15 years ago. So there's a lot of things that come up with that. And then after this little segment, we are doing some education on online trafficking and keeping our kids safe with their devices. So if you know any moms who need to know this information, be sure to share, like, and comment, and consider donating to Stop SIS to support educating on trafficking. And we speak all around the country, as well as empowering those on the healing journey through our programs. All donations go directly to support the benefit of survivors. All right. So I love your picture, by the way, that you
You remember where those pictures were taken?
I do.
Yeah, we were trying to act natural or something. I can't do pictures very well.
That is so funny. Okay, so this first girl that I have, so the story here is that she is an OnlyFans model, and she basically she was like in the tech world. Hold on, I'm going to put it like this. So, all right. So this lady was an OnlyFans model. She's in her 20s. She had a real job. She was in technology, living in California. And then COVID hit and she was bored. And so she and her husband started an OnlyFans account and are now making more money in a day, right? Most likely than they really ever could at their regular job. And so I had timestamps, but they're in the kitchen. So I am going to try to remember. And what I'm going to do is put this on 1.5 speed. So we're not going to listen to her whole story. I'll do 1.25 and we'll see if that's, we're not going to listen to her whole story, but I do think that I want to hear what you have to say about some of the things she has to say.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, ugh. I don't like that. Can we just do audio?
Support.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was the one who was like,
Okay, so this is a bit about her husband and her husband supporting her doing this.
Can we just do audio? Is there a way to just do audio?
Let's see.
I don't like that. I'm sorry.
I don't know unless I put something on top of her.
Yeah, put something on top of her.
Let's see. Okay. I don't know if it will work because I have to choose the screen here. But-
Tell me her story then.
Okay.
Sorry. Don't hate me. I can't handle that.
Okay. I'll tell you her story and you can react. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay.
You already saw my first reaction.
All right. What's your first reaction?
I can't. Mm-mm. Oh, and somebody was saying they couldn't see the video. So,
Well, are you asking why you can't see the video or why Rachel doesn't want to play the video? I guess.
oh, that could.
So if you couldn't see the video, it should have been working. But tell us about that initial reaction just then.
The clothes, the exposure, all of that is triggering for me. And remembering different places and things. So, Alicia says start the video and minimize it.
Okay. Let's see if I can try that.
Oh, she wanted to know why Rachel is repulsed. Yeah, it's super triggering for me to see somebody in an outfit like that.
Okay. Let's see. So close your eyes.
Okay.
I'm
Everybody
going to
else
see if I
needs-
can do it again. And this time I'll use Alicia's tip. I closed out all my other. Oh, you're going to. We'll see if this works.
Okay.
Keep your eyes closed for now.
Okay.
made me cringe so hard. It just made me feel so unsexy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not made for this. I was not made for this. And luckily my husband was like very supportive. He's like, no, it's okay. We'll work on it. We'll do this. Like, I'll coach you through some things. Like, try this. You know, he would take.
You're married.
So that's part of it too. So I guess, do you want to just close your eyes?
I guess so.
Okay. We won't be listening to very long.
I'm married.
Okay.
He supports you doing that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was the one who was like, we should do this. Like, this is going to be such a great, like, he called it, what did he say? He said, it's the gold rush of our era. And if we would be stupid not to try.
In some ways, he's right.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
That's the line I wanted you to hear. And so there's a couple things in this whole video. This is an interview from Soft White Underbelly. And if you go to that YouTube channel, he's got tons of different stories from people living on the street, addicted to drugs. He's got a whole series from this family in like Virginia living in the mountains where they call them, I don't even remember. Like their parents were like second cousins. Anyway, the parents they're all inbred. Anyway, it's very fascinating. But every week he comes out with these stories, maybe even every day. And this was one of the stories. And so the line that I thought was very fascinating was, this is the gold rush of our era. And the way that she describes this is that she's not being touched, but the things she's doing are being videoed, and she has relations with her fans, and they pay for her to do specific things.
She is being touched.
Including her and her husband doing things together that are videotaped. And the reason why it like stirred me up was I was like, all right, even if you think that this is not a problem for you, the ripple effect of this is creating problems all over, including fourth grade classrooms. So when you hear somebody like that, and for somebody who I don't know much, I didn't know much about porn until I met you and learned a lot more, but this is somebody that I would think, oh yeah, this is their choosing. And kind of say the same thing.
I disagree. And I only listened to just a small portion of it, but there was a piece where she said, I didn't like it and it didn't make me feel good. But my husband said, well, we'll work on it. Guys, that's manipulation. That's the brainwashing piece. She said, no, I don't like it. Okay, well, we'll work on it because this is the gold rush. This is how we're going to make our money. It's not a choice at that point. It's what her husband wanted.
Yeah, that's what Catherine
Yes.
agrees to.
Yes.
Her husband is trafficking her.
Yes.
And that's part of the grooming process is they think it's you, they brainwash you into thinking it's your own idea.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, this is great. Yeah, I totally agree. My husband's totally for it. Yeah, he's running it. He just told you, we're going to make it to where you do like it.
Yeah. So we have girls that work with us who were escorts and things in hotels, and they were believing as well that it was a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they weren't making ends meet on their own financially. It felt like the only option. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an option. When you don't have other options, is it an option? You know what I mean? And due to all of the abuse that she had dealt with throughout her life leading up to that, again, it takes away the options. It takes away the self-worth. It takes away so much. This is just preying on people who've been broken by this exact industry.
So tell me about the ripple effect of somebody who believes it's their choice doing this because it's the gold rush of our era and we'd be dumb not to take advantage of it. How is that impacting culture at large and potentially something that, I mean, it is impacting things. And that's, I guess, the point I wanted to make.
Yeah. So first of all, watching that stuff changes your brain. Flat out. We have statistics out there that say on average, a child is 8 years old the first time that they see pornography. That changes the brain of the child. At the same time, we're talking about end the demand. Well, when people watch something, they get a high. They get like a dopamine rush. It's like a drug. Then they watch something like that. And so once they get what they, gives them that rush, they then need a little bit more. And a little bit more and a little bit more. And so they then no longer just going to watch it. They're going to bring in their own person that they're going to do those exact actions to. They're going to manipulate and groom a child so that they can do it that. I mean, it just continues to get worse and worse. Like Catherine is saying, if you desensitize yourself and normalize some of this stuff, then what's going to be normal 20 years from now? It's just going to get worse and worse. And it's already, in my opinion, as bad as it could possibly get.
Yeah, Ashley said it's so sad to see the corruption and brainwashing. And this is a perfect example of how someone doesn't even quite know they're being brainwashed. Mm-hmm. And so she believes that it's her choice or that she's choosing this or whatever. But at the end of the day, she's being handled.
She absolutely is. Yeah, she doesn't. I mean, she said it plain as day. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. But he told me we would figure out another way that I would do it. No, it's not a choice. And in the same way, the men who watch that are being trained to then do the exact same things to their next victim. And so the trafficking continues. And again, guys, this is not like, in other countries. This is within her own home with her husband being trafficked. And I know of other women whose husbands did it without them knowing, videotaped things without them knowing and sold it for a profit. Trafficking can exist in so many different ways, and it's getting worse and worse.
Any other thoughts about either the clip I just played or OnlyFans? Ashley says, oh, yeah, because he loves her and he's her husband, so she's justifying it. Yeah, absolutely. We make excuses for a lot of things that aren't.
We do, but also we say this all the time. When you hear something, you get the tip of the iceberg. You don't know what else is going on behind closed doors. You don't know what's making her say the things that she's saying, like, I want to do this. I mean, that's the same thing with a lot of women who are stuck in the life. They think it's their choice. They think this is what they want. But But really, if you were to go to the rest of the iceberg underneath the surface, there's years of reasons why they feel like this is what they have to do.
Well, I think that's an interesting point too. Even just her interview is giving us the highlight reel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're getting that tip of the iceberg. We don't know what else her husband is making her do that she doesn't want to do.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sally says, so sick that he normalizes taking advantage of his wife and making money off her. Yeah. It blows my mind that you just wonder where that perversion continues to impact the rest of their relationship, and who really knows, but I don't have words.
Yeah.
What they say and do publicly, Catherine says, pales in comparison to what's being done. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this is just another example of trafficking happening in our own backyard, in the privacy of our own homes without somebody being touched, but yet making millions and being owned the whole time.
Right. Yeah. And what's the alternative for her? She, like, somebody said earlier, might have been Ashley. I mean, she's going to lose the love, quote unquote, love of her husband. She's going to lose all of this money. She's going to lose her house. She's going to lose everything. Or she says, okay, fine. I don't like it, but okay, fine.
Right. Well, again, I think of domestic violence situations because I've worked with several survivors in domestic violence situations, and we'll always say, why don't they leave? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? And one of them is that it's not bad all the time. Sometimes there's these good moments, and there's this, I mean, we know your trafficker groomed you, and it's called intermittent reinforcement, which is the strongest form of reinforcement, meaning it's not always bad. There's some love, and there's some specialness, and there's gifts, and there's alone time or whatever it is where I feel special. And then when you put what I don't like intermittently, we can justify it and allow a lot of things that we don't like because we're minimizing it, and we feel like it's a spiral.
And I think too, like, women don't talk about it, so they're isolated and they suffer in silence. Basically, like, this is just the way it's supposed to be. This is just this is just my life. This is just what it's become.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. Catherine says, great, important conversation. Kudos. Yes. All right, we're not done yet. We've got one more video to show you. Yeah. This one has no nudity. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, guys, I did not say a trigger warning. I should know better by now. Okay, well, this is another story. This is kind of how we work. I do lots of research, and then I share it with Rachel, and we have a good discussion about it. We do a lot of this on our podcast, Stop Suffering in Silence, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, all the things. So please be sure we can come out with a new episode each and every Monday. In fact, her son just was interviewed and shared about his anxiety attacks and how as a middle schooler he's dealt with and healed through and learned to handle anxiety attacks. So a lot of really powerful conversations here. But this one is from Law and Crime. So this is another YouTube channel. They post a lot of stuff all the time. But this one I thought was really interesting for two reasons. And so I'm going to share a bit more of this potentially, depending on how you feel.
Okay.
This is a teacher who was in a relationship with this is a female teacher who's in a relationship with a female student when the student was ages 15 to 17.
Okay.
And the year that this happened around was 2007.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen. I want to show the first 5 minutes and then skip a little bit because there's 2 points here that I want you to hear.
Okay.
I have it on 1.25 speed. So let me know if that's too slow, too fast,
Okay.
And you guys in the comments, let us know if you need anything different as well. This is the first time we're using this cool tool, so I'm really proud of ourselves. Okay. All right. And again, Rachel, if any of this is like not helpful to your ears, let me know and I'll just explain it.
Okay.
Headed to the rodeo to see Sax's band.
Texas teacher, once a beloved chair of the English department, now faces sexual assault allegations dating back to 2007. Prosecutors say she sexually assaulted a female student for multiple years.
It's less about the nature of this because it's who you prefer, right? I think, in my opinion, it's more about the fact that they are prosecuting this teacher, even though 15 years has passed.
Former CIA officer and FBI agent Tracy Walder says this case could mean big things for other sexual assault survivors, even decades after their abuse.
That's something that is rare and that we haven't seen a lot. And I think this could really set an interesting precedence if in terms of students feeling comfortable that they could come forward and things like this. I think that's the interesting part of this case, is that it is being prosecuted, and we haven't seen that a lot.
The investigation into Brandon Hargrove began in September of last year, when authorities were tipped off about the alleged abuse. At the time, she was put on administrative leave from her position at Brazos Wood High School in Clute, Texas, about an hour south of Houston. The district released a statement reading in part, quote, "BISD is dedicated to uphold seriously the understanding of 4 counts of indecency with a child by contact, 2 counts of indecency with a child by exposure." The incident dates back to 2007. Police say Hargrove sexually assaulted the girl multiple times when she was 15 to 17 years old. The survivor came forward in September of this year. What would make her come forward now, more than 15 years later?
So I'm going to move it to
less and less of these teachers will be able to
my next
continue their
timestamp.
careers in the classroom.
Who she'd been assigned to counsel. Investigators found
This
the
is a
images.
different story.
It depends.
Okay.
It depends on.
Okay, so that was one. I wanted you to hear a little bit about the background, but then also the precedence that's being set by prosecuting a teacher 15 years later. But I also want you to hear what they say could be a reason why the person is coming forward now, and then we can have a discussion.
All right, cool.
On whether or not, you may have a situation where the student decided to actually hold on to all of those. I've seen that happen before. The student probably felt traumatized and victimized at the time, maybe wasn't sure what they wanted to do about that, and may have kept this information for that long. We don't know. Yes, my data.
So basically they're talking about keeping texts, emails, journals, anything from back at that time that could be helpful. But also,
it depends on whether or not, you may have a situation where the student decided to actually hold on to all of those. I've seen that happen before. The student probably felt traumatized and victimized at the time, maybe wasn't sure what they wanted to do about that, and may have kept this information for that long. We don't know. Yes.
So those are the 2 things I wanted to share. Hold on. There we go. So let's talk about the first. Well, there's 2 things. Number 1 is time, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The second thing I wanted to bring up is when the lawyer said the girl probably didn't come forward because she felt victimized. I immediately went, no, that is not what happened. And I think that this is, again, something that people don't recognize, is that, in my humble opinion, one of the reasons why this girl didn't come forward when she was 15, 16, and 17 is because she thought that the teacher loved her. So tell me your initial responses when you hear that as well.
Yeah. I think a couple things. I think, yes, there was probably a relationship formed. There was probably a reason that she kept quiet on behalf of this teacher, thinking there was a relationship, thinking that she did care about her, thinking that, this was just their special secret. And, I'm assuming, based off so much that I've been through and then what I've seen from other victims, survivors as well. Obviously, I can't know without knowing this person, but majority of the time you stay silent because you do think you're in a relationship, or there's a shame aspect. And sometimes, I will say, when it is especially this same sex, like a man on a little boy or now a woman on a little girl, there can be so much shame and guilt that they think is their own to carry, that also keeps them quiet. But the fact that she kept all the texts and kept all the things makes me think she probably felt a sense of love towards that teacher.
Well, and in my opinion, the fact that it lasted 2 years tells me it wasn't an attack, it was a relationship. And that grooming really grabs a hold of your heart. And it wasn't until she was older. And again, this is all speculation. We just know what we've just heard on the video.
Right.
But based on what we've experienced working with survivors is that they when they get older, you know, I mean, you have mentioned that when your flashbacks came and you started talking to a counselor, you had to come to a realization that it wasn't a relationship.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I was so angry. She began to tell me that he groomed you. Like he was purposefully doing these things so that he could hurt you. And I remember in the beginning thinking, no, there's no way. I know he loved me. That can't be the case. But then you see where you see signs of him doing it with other girls and younger. And it's like, oh my gosh, this isn't real. It doesn't make sense for a 35-year-old man to want to be with a 9-year-old girl. What had somehow become normalized, now it's like your eyes are open to, oh no. I was completely blindsided.
Yeah. And that's what I imagine with some of these relationships with teachers and students is that the student feels special. The student is groomed. The student, as Jill is saying, got more attention from the teacher at school than at home and liked it. And so didn't consider it necessarily abuse.
Right.
And what's interesting is that you can have this, I guess I'd want to ask your opinion on this as well. So if somebody doesn't characterize it as abuse and then years later figures out, oh my gosh, that really was, what do you think? Like the reality is the trauma is still there. It's still the manipulation, the brainwashing, all of that. It still impacts a person, even if they don't quite recognize it right away. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, because you're still getting the impact of like what they did to you. Your body still keeps the score. Your brain still develops differently. Your emotions respond differently to people. I mean, there's times like when all my flashbacks started coming back and it was almost like, oh my goodness, this makes sense as to why I have been feeling the way I've been feeling and responding the way I've been responding. And it's like all the puzzle pieces started to come together. So yeah, I still had the trauma piece, even though I didn't remember everything back then.
Yeah. Your body still kept the score. All right. I'm going to share one more time and we'll finish the video, just to hear again about the precedent that this sets for, because I think that's really an important piece of this that could be really cool. So let's learn a bit more about the court case.
Data recovery be difficult in a situation like this? Of course. As you mentioned, it's a completely different self-help platform than what we're operating on today. But I do think that this may be an instance where the student felt that they were being victimized and maybe knew that this was wrong, was not in a headspace where they felt that they in all of this as well to sort of point them in the right direction. Because if this student kept a journal, maybe they mentioned friends that saw this happening. Maybe they mentioned other adults that they saw, and so those people could all be forced to speak.
Is it possible that someone way back when, in 2007, around when this was happening, saw something and didn't come forward or didn't even realize what they saw was something nefarious?
So that's actually exactly what happened in the case of the Castilleja school, which I had mentioned about before, is a lot of individuals did ultimately come forward. I think at the time it maybe didn't register. It was sort of a folklore, I guess, around the school, if you will, or maybe it wasn't taken seriously, but they did ultimately come forward. So yes, that's highly possible.
Walter says witness testimony will be helpful in the case against Hargrove, but it will likely be the testimony of the survivor herself that will help yield a conviction. And in this case, do you think it's paramount that the accuser herself comes forward and testifies?
In my opinion, yes. But I never want to compel someone who's been the victim of abuse, right? That's such a delicate subject. I think it would be very beneficial in regards to moving the case forward and getting an outcome that she wants. But I would imagine that they're being rather delicate about this and trying to build a case that doesn't hinge solely on her testimony.
Just this week, Hargrove's district held an emergency meeting voting to terminate her contract. That's expected at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, they didn't really talk about it again, but at the beginning they talked a bit more about the statute of limitations and the importance of people coming forward even decades later. What do you know about statute of limitations? What are your thoughts on a precedent like this being set?
I think for myself, as some of you guys know, I'm in the middle of a civil suit that I won't go into many details of at this point, but I will say that legislation is getting better about statute of limitations, and in some places there is no statute of limitations anymore. Of course, back in the day, there were some. They would say if you didn't come forward 2 years after your 18th birthday, then, let's just act like it didn't happen. Things, just stuff like that. But they're starting to realize that through dissociation, through shame, through all different things, there's reasons why survivors can't come forward. Maybe they're not strong enough, or they're not in a safe place themselves to be able to come forward. Whatever the reason is, there should be no statute of limitations, because there's no limitation on the amount of trauma that the victim will end up having. I mean, it's not like, okay, 2 years after my 18th birthday, I'm not going to have trauma from this anymore, despite everything that happened to me starting from the age of 9. It still impacts me daily. And so there shouldn't be a statute of limitations on this. I think, like you said earlier, we're doing better about, like, with all of the technology, which is a good and bad thing. We have more proof of stuff. We have the communications between people. And we are starting to get a community that believes the victim. It's slow go, in my opinion, but we're starting to see that. And the fact that the school district is taking this seriously, the police are taking this seriously, it's huge. But then I also want to give a shout out to the community members or the other teachers who came forward and shared what they saw. If you are somebody who has seen something that seemed off, please come share it. Like whenever you hear that somebody had been victimized, and you think back and you remember certain things, like, oh my goodness, I did see this and this, and now it makes sense. Come forward. Because those testimonies matter so much, to where for hopefully this victim, she won't have to go through detail after detail of what was done to her. It can, hopefully the testimony of other people can help her win this case.
And the more that, this is the third video on Law and Crime in the last, when was this one? This one was like a week ago that I heard it. There's been 2 more posted on this channel from a teacher with a student.
Yeah, we just had one popped up on my news feed from a town right next door that they're saying is a teacher's being charged with, what is it? Statutory rape. It's rape. Like, why do we don't call it statutory? Whatever. It's a child. It's rape. It's a teacher. It's rape.
Yeah. And so again, this is something that, like you said, is hopefully becoming more aware. People are believing the victim. They are taking it seriously. They're taking these allegations seriously. And then the school district, of course, we hope that it shouldn't happen to begin with, but the school district could and should make changes so that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've heard stories of girls. I have a friend who was a teacher, and she was in student teaching at that time, and she saw some inappropriate things, and she went to the school district, to the superintendent, and he basically said, don't worry about it. And she kept going, and this teacher ended up going to a different school, and she told them, and then she ended up testifying against him at some point. So even if you ruffle feathers along the way, our job as humans is to keep each other safe, especially children.
Amen to that. Yeah, I met a lady at one of our events who she was a teacher, saw something inappropriate, ruffled feathers, and got fired. and thought, you know what, maybe I did the wrong thing. But years later, because she cared and she did come forward, it gave the survivor or the victim strength to then come forward a couple years later and confirm what she had said all along. And so she saved that kid's life.
Well, and you think about just having things in the record. It's super helpful to have things written down in the record, making a complaint, whatever the case may be. Catherine says, this is one of the reasons we need solid legislation regarding statute of limitations. And is it different state by state?
I do think it is.
And I think that can be confusing as well.
Yeah.
She also says, and many do not remember for decades, which is, I think, part of what the bad guys know.
I do too. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's make it so bad that they don't remember.
Yeah.
Because their body shuts down.
Yeah, they know how trauma works. And yeah, we've heard crazy stories of even men saying, and I don't even want to say it. Never mind.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, they know. Let's just say they know, and they're utilizing it on purpose. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It is Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and I hope that you gained some awareness. So thank you for spreading the word. Let us know how we can support you. And Rachel, we'll see you on the podcast next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your event, workshop, school, church, or organization, then please email racheltimothy.stopsis@gmail.com. If you are interested in donating to the STOPSIS ministry, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below. Or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence or you know somebody who is, then check out our website, stopsuffering.org, to learn more about our online programs and resources. We will always recommend that you also reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.